everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. I have a special guest some of you have met before. He spoke with us just a few weeks ago, but then also Chris Heller has been in the real estate industry for so many years. Chris, sometimes we don't like to talk about how many years exactly we've been in business, but I think you and I have known each other 20-ish.
I think over 30.
Yeah, maybe over 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, time flies, right? When we're all having so much fun. But Chris has such a background as incredible team leader, top producing agent, radio show host. I remember in the past, fabulous coach. We worked together years ago. And then, of course, Chris, a lot of other interesting business adventures inside the world of real estate. So we have a good topic today. And, so many of you have these pipelines of leads and maybe even leads that you think are cold or even dead because they didn't transact in the last year or two. And yet, Chris, we know there was 40 to 50% of the business was just stuck, not willing to take action. So that's what you're going to share some thoughts with us today, right? How to get past the not now, because the not now is different than a no. A no is, maybe it's a condition, maybe it's an objection, but not now, it's a procrastination. And I have this favorite affirmation I made up years ago, Chris. My job as a great salesperson is to help people overcome their fear and hesitation to achieve their goal. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because I think where people get hung up on lead follow-up, I call once or twice, they don't call me back. They don't want me. They don't need me. I don't want to be too pushy. It's a lot of mindset issues, I think, sometimes around being a really awesome converter. So, Chris, I'm going to turn it over for you. I think you actually have some great slides for us. So, take it away.
All right. Well, thanks, Debbie. And hello, everybody. I'm going to provide a lot of information. So if you don't have something to write with, I suggest you get it. All right. Let me turn this into a slideshow.
And which, by the way, as you're pulling that up, Chris, yes, please take notes. Please type questions in the chat box as we go. Jan, it's great to see you there. It's been a long time since I've actually seen you in person. So great to see you there. Please type notes in the chat or questions in the chat, take notes, and then, yes, we are recording and we automatically send you a copy. You'll have it tomorrow. So just
Yeah.
check your inbox tomorrow.
But take notes, because we know most of you will never watch the recording, even though
That's
you have
right.
good intentions of doing so. And Debbie or someone, if you could just monitor the chat, and if there's a question, just
I'll
interrupt
monitor
me.
for you.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
Interrupt me. This will be a much more impactful conversation if it's interactive.
Okay.
Um, all right. So I'm not going to spend time on who we are, because this is about you guys, not about us. So here's the truth about leads. And some people like to argue this one, and I'm happy to. I don't want to take time now and everyone's time to argue it, but I'm happy to argue this with you. There are no bad leads. There's only bad follow-up,
Right.
right? A lead is a lead. Now, do some have more urgency than others? Some have higher intent than others? Yes, but it doesn't make them good or bad. It's also important to understand that timing does not equal intent. Most agents give up before timing aligns.
Mhm.
I get asked the question all the time, Debbie, I'm sure you do too. How long do you follow up for? Whenever I hear that question, I don't know how to answer it, because
I agree. I
the
struggle
answer is, why would you ever stop? Like,
until they tell me
yes,
absolutely I never, ever, ever want to
yeah,
hear from you
yeah,
again, right?
yeah,
They
uh,
block me from their phone. But
yeah.
yeah,
What?
Chris, just really quick, there was an MIT study a few years ago, it was just sales in general, but it said 50% of leads are never followed up on. And those that are, the other 50%, 2 to 3 attempts, when the magic is 6 to 12 attempts. And sometimes in real estate, 6 to 18 months because people start their search online early, right? It's easy for them to do that.
Yep. And when we see this, look at the difference between the top agents and the ones that aren't is usually in their follow-up behavior. Uh,
Mhm.
Now, are skills important? Yes, skills are important, experience, all those things, but it's the behavior, it's the activities that really separate them. I want you guys to read this. Most agents don't lose business because of lack of leads. They lose it because of lack of follow-up. See, I don't believe in real estate there's a leads problem. Everyone's, people say, I need more leads, I need more leads. Um, Look at your phone. Like, how many contacts do you have in your phone? Every one of those people are a prospect. Now, does that mean they're all buyers or sellers? No. Um, they all might be buyers or sellers at some point, but they all know people. They all have relationships. They all have acquaintances. They're all a source of business. Timing is everything. And no one has a magic ball, a crystal ball, or a magic, you know, anything to be able to predict when the right timing is. That's why we need to be following up all the time. How many times have you lost an opportunity with a buyer or seller because you didn't follow up in time? Uh, I know how often that happened because almost every buyer or seller that I got under contract was someone that someone else was following up with. They just weren't doing it enough, or they weren't there at the right time.
Chris, don't
Well,
you think too, sometimes we believe what they tell us. And I don't mean that in a rude way that they're a liar. It's just people sometimes give us a longer time frame than is reality because they want to keep us a little bit at a distance, right? Well, I might move in the summer. And then you wait until June to call them and they move 2 months prior.
yeah,
So while we would ask great questions, which I'm sure you'll cover, I always had a rule of thumb: cut in half whatever they tell me because they might not have told me the truth, but also they get emotional about what they're thinking of doing. And sometimes that time frame escalates and we call them too late.
yeah. And I'm going to touch on that for sure. And I use the same rule. Just cut it in half,
Mhm.
right? If someone says, and you've done everything you can in the conversation, and you're not getting beyond them saying, call me in 2 months. In my mind, that's 1 month. If it's 2 weeks, it's 1 week. If it's 2 days, it's 1 day. Um, so um, consistency trumps talent. I want you to hear that. For the newer agents that say, well, I'm not, I don't have the experience. I don't have the skills. I don't have the name recognition. I don't have that. Consistency and persistency, being consistent, being persistent will cause you to win more times than not.
Mhm.
But when I was a new agent, I won being persistent and consistent. I had no talent, no skills, no experience.
Same
Uh,
here.
yeah, none of those things.
Yeah.
But you gain those things. But if you can master being consistent and persistent, you're building your business on a really solid foundation. All right, so here's what we're going to cover. The true purpose of follow-up. Um, the three goals on every follow-up call. How to create doubt, urgency, FOMO without it feeling like pressure or salesy. And then some scripts and real examples. And then how to stay persistent and consistent when that voice in your head is telling you, no, it's too soon, or I'm going to be bothering them, or they're going to get angry. All right, so let's talk about the purpose of follow-up. Here's what it's not. It's not checking a box, right? We don't have this list of people we're going to need to follow up with and we're going to just check the box. Oh, I did that. I did that. I did that. We have to have a goal. Um, and the purpose is to move people forward. Now, where are we moving them forward to? We always have one goal in mind. It's an appointment or it's a contract, right? So it's moving them closer to an appointment or a contact. Now, the follow-up itself has to provide value, clarity, and confidence, even when the client isn't ready. I'll give you an example. Yesterday morning, I had a my first appointment with a physical therapy for my knee. And going into that appointment, I didn't know if that was the physical therapist I was going to use, I was going to like, I was going to ever go back again. But in a very, very short period of time, he he demonstrated value. He was extremely confident. I knew based on what he was saying and what he was doing that he was competent. And in a very short period of time, I was like, this is my guy. I will, I'll be coming back here. I'm glad I'm here. This is the right one. He provided clarity. Debbie mentioned this earlier in the conversation. What stops people from moving forward, and she mentioned fear and other things. I think the primary thing that stops people from moving forward is clarity or lack of clarity. And lack of clarity is the thing that prevents people from making decisions. So one of our goals is to be the one providing clarity. And we'll talk more about that. So I talked about the goals of each follow-up call. That's where I'm hearing some feedback. That's why I'm hesitating. I don't know if it's my mic or not.
But it actually
Anyways,
sounds good for me
uh,
on my end.
what's that?
Sounds fine on my end.
Okay. All right. Um, so every call we make, every follow-up call, there's one of three things we want to happen. And don't have judgment over one being better than the other or this one not being as good as the other. As long as one of these three things happen, you're winning. All right. So number one is we get an appointment, right? I called Debbie, I met her in open house, and I set an appointment for a buyer consultation. That's a win. I called Debbie, I met her at an open house, and she's not ready to meet to do a buyer consultation. But we set up a time when I'm going to get back to her where we then will set the appointment, right? So I've created clarity on what the next steps are. Or number three, I call her and I find out, and she tells me that, hey, I was actually just there looking for my cousin who was thinking of relocating, and she got a job somewhere else and she's moving to the other side of the country. Right. So there's nothing there for me to follow up with. And I don't need to call her anymore or spend any more time. So as long as one of those three things happen, I've made a productive call. I've had a productive activity. I know that I'm making progress.
And Chris, you may get to this, but if we go just back to that previous slide,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
while it's on our minds. So when you get clarity on when to call back and set the appointment, as we go forward in this, we want to talk a little bit about asking the right questions to make sure you truly do understand. So if August is your time frame, what's important about that? If there were a clear financial advantage, could you consider doing it sooner? Like, you don't just hear the August and say, okay, it's August, right? And I know you're going to share that probably in your scripts. And then if they aren't a lead, just not a lead at all, Chris, you are the master of nurturing. And I remember years ago when I had the opportunity to work with your team that you had like 20,000 plus in a nurture category, not a buyer, not a seller. And you actually told me that often 7 to 9 listings a month would come from that pond of nurtures who would just call you and say, I've been receiving your emails forever, right? So if you have a good conversation, why not, guys? If you're using a great CRM, many of you using Brevity, which is awesome, then why not? And now they are saying they're still hearing background noise, Chris. So, guys,
Yeah. Let me check something real quick. Let me stop sharing and
we don't want to drive you guys crazy. So, not now, and
okay.
now.
All right. Let's see.
Okay, so testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear it, guys? Are you good? It comes and goes.
Yeah, it comes and goes. All right, hold on one sec. Let me
Just on your end, Chris.
I know. I just checked the setting. It's the right one. So,
So when Chris was talking about clarity, it made me think of the magic is in the math, right? Because people watch the news or they talk to their friends or they see things on social media and they draw their conclusions about the market, which may or may not be accurate, right? Then also, everyone would love to time the market, but that's pretty much impossible. So sometimes just getting them to talk to a great lender or getting in their home and going over the financial, return that they can earn, the buy up, the move down, just giving them clarity on that plan is the first step. And that's why sometimes, Chris, I like to say, well, if this is something you're truly interested in doing in the future, why not get together now? Let's lay a foundation. Let's look at some numbers. Let's get a plan. Let's address your questions. That will help you feel comfortable with me. That will help me understand what I need to send you. And there's no rush. However, I know if I can get together with them, I might be able to find that true legitimate way to spark some urgency.
Yeah, that's why the goal is always to get face to face with people, right? And then we can have those more meaningful conversations. So back to follow up, and let's again, I want to really make sure we we differentiate between what follow up is and what it isn't. It's not checking in. It's not a task to complete. It's not a passive communication. Debbie talked about asking questions. Right? I've listened to thousands and thousands of phone calls, recorded calls with agents and consumers. We had over 250,000 of those recorded calls in my last company. And they were painful and painful to listen to. One of the things that was consistently painful was hearing the consumer say something and the agent assuming they knew what they meant or just acting on that. So the example Debbie mentioned, someone said, "Well, yeah, probably August will be the time." And the agent say, "Okay, great. I'll call you when we get closer to August." Instead of saying, "Well, tell me about that. What's happening in August that's going to cause you to make a move then?" All right. Well, the kids will be out of school and and that'll give us time to find what we're looking for, right? And they'll tell you what their plans are. They'll tell you what their needs are. You'll see where the opportunities are. So we have to get really good at asking questions. And I often use the phrase, "Hey, just so I'm clear, what or how or when," right? I'm just trying to get clarity so I know how to best serve you. Um, and then not waiting for them to call you back, right? No, that is not follow up, right? Them saying, "Oh, well, we'll call you," is not follow up. Follow up has to deliver value every time. If a salesperson is interacting with me and they're not providing me with something of value, then they're just an annoyance. They're just taking up my time. They're just taking up, space, and I don't need that, and nor does anyone else. So we have to make sure we're providing value. So delivering value, one way we can do that is through information or data. And sometimes this can create urgency because it can create doubt or FOMO, and we're all affected by that. Um, Value that moves people forward includes delivering information that the consumer can't get anywhere else, right? I can go on to Claude or ChatGPT and ask a lot of questions, get a lot of information. I can use Google things. I can go into Zillow. I can go, I can get real estate information a lot of places. I'm considering selling and buying a property right now. And there's a local agent who dominates this market. And these are lakefront properties that I'm referring to. And he knows every inch of the lake. I'm calling him today to get his advice on values and the current state of things and what this side of the lake versus that side of the lake means. Right? I I've been an agent forever. I understand real estate. I understand negotiating anything else, but someone with that local knowledge is valuable to me. So we have to be that agent. We have to be that agent that has those insights that can share information that I'm not going to get anywhere else. It might be market updates. You know, we use a company called Area Pro, which gives us the stats and some great visuals to be able to show someone exactly what's happening with supply and demand or inventory levels or rate of sale and days on market, right? The being able to say, hey, Debbie, you know, when we spoke last, it was because I met you at an open house. And I just want to let you know that that open house sold. And I can't tell you the price because it's still under contract, but they were priced well. The market reacted very well to that. The reason I'm calling is I know that home is gone and it wasn't an exact fit for you, but there's 3 or 4 more properties that are going to be coming on the market in the next 30 to 45 days. And if one of those was the right fit for you, I want to know if that's something you'd be interested in knowing about. All right. That would be of value. If you're a buyer or whether you're super active or just thinking about buying, it'd be hard for you to say, no, I don't want to know about that. Right. So status changes on homes, market stats, new opportunities, things that you know of that they probably don't because it's not on the market yet. All those things can create urgency, can create FOMO, can create clarity, and those are all good things when we're following up. Here's a specific script, similar to the one I just used. Hey, the house you inquired about was under contract, but I wanted you to know that the main reason I called is because there's 2 more that are coming on the market in that area. If they're really good value, would you want to know about them? Right? That could be a text, that could be a voicemail. Um, Obviously, it could be a conversation. What does that script do? It provides new information. It establishes some expertise and some market knowledge. It builds anticipation and it creates forward momentum. If we can do all those things on every follow-up that we make, we're making progress. We're moving people forward. We're helping them get to the point to where they're actually ready to do something. Remember early on, I said timing does not equal intent. If we had the magic powers to know when the right time would be, we we dominate our markets, right? We get all the business, but none of us do. So that means that we have to just be there all the time because we never know what changes. The vast majority of the properties I bought, and I buy a lot of properties, I'm still buying properties. Rarely do I ever set out to go, oh, I'm going to buy a property now. This is what I'm looking for. Almost all of them are just opportunity purchases that come up. And so if someone were to ask me, well, Chris, do you have any plans to buy anything in the next 6 months or this year? My answer might be, no, I don't have any plans, but I'll probably buy 2 or 3 or 4 more properties this year just because I know that's how things happen. So if that person doesn't follow up with me again because I said, no, I don't have any specific plans, they're going to miss out on opportunities. And we don't want to be that agent.
So Chris, just really quick, couple thoughts. One would
Yep.
be, let's say you meet someone at open house, you guys hit it off, it's great, but they say, well, I do have an agent, I'm not on a buyer rep agreement because I'm not looking that aggressively, but I got a friend and if I ever do anything, and you could easily say, I can understand and appreciate that if I were to discover an off-market opportunity, something special, and I contacted you about it, would you be willing to allow me to represent you on that property? Because see, many people will, right? They may, and I'm
Most of them will.
will. So I'm not talking about they have a legit buyer agreement and they're out shopping with that agent. I'm just saying, yeah, I know someone. I'd probably go to them if I do anything. Well, if I brought you something, would you give me that opportunity? And then also, I know they get stuck in feeling too aggressive. It would probably make sense each time they speak to that person, ask permission. Say, with your permission, may I call you back next month, let you know what's happening in the market? I know you've told me you're definitely not moving until August, but if I can show my service, my value, then I would hope in August you'll allow me to help you. So would that be okay? And then when you call them back, you can say, I promised you I would call you. And then you might feel a little bit less reluctant to make the call if you're someone who is a personality style who is concerned about being too aggressive.
Yeah, and I want to say something about that because that's always a trigger for me. Um, Here's the truth that people want to deal with aggressive, proactive people. If you have an accountant, you don't want someone who's reactive. You want that accountant or that financial advisor who's calling you and saying, "Hey, I noticed this. There's a better way to do this, or there's a strategy that we should implement that could save you money or make you more money." If you have an attorney, and I've had good and bad, I've had the ones that were reactive and passive, and typically those ended up costing me a lot of money. When you have a proactive, aggressive attorney who's staying one step ahead and looking around corners and thinking the next steps, those are the ones that can, make your life much better and save you a lot of money. So don't get hung up on what we think aggressive means or is. Most people value that. Most people like those type of professionals, right? If someone's hiring someone to sell something for them, do you think they want someone who's going to be passive and mousy and and not be aggressive and proactive? No, that's what they want. I'm going to say one more thing about that too is that the thing that gets in the way more than anything else is not knowing what to say or what to do or thing. It's what Debbie alluded to. It's that voice in your head that stops you because of what you're afraid of. I call it the second thought. Right? The first thought is, oh, I should follow up with Debbie. I should follow up with Joe from that open house. I should follow up with this person. The second thought is the one that always kills the follow-up. The second thought is, oh, it's too soon, or I'm going to come across too salesy, or I don't want to be pushy, or I don't want to bother them. Right? Stop listening to the second thought. Act on the first thought that you have. I want to go back to one thing on the slide if I can do. Well, no. Anyways, um, people talk about, how often. This is a rule. I'm not going to say it's the best rule or anything else, but if you want rules, if you like rules, then you'll enjoy this. This is called the 333 rule. You get a new lead, a new contact, regardless of how or where you got them. You follow up 3 times a day for the first 3 days till you get a hold of them. 3 times a week for the first 3 weeks, and then 3 times a month for the first 3 months, and then monthly after that. So this is someone that you're trying to get a hold of. Might have been an internet lead, might have been a sign call, you didn't get it live. So now you're following up to try to make that initial connection. Here's how often, and here's a plan for trying to get a hold of someone that you hadn't got a hold of yet. And if anyone, one more comment on that. If anyone looked at that and says, "Oh, that's too much," or it's too pushy, we're thinking about them. We're thinking about following up with them. We're thinking about doing it 3 times today because we got this lead that came in during the middle of the night. They're not thinking about us. They're not even paying attention. We're not even on their radar. They're getting their kids ready for school. They got their job to do. They got their issues and their challenges and their meetings they have to prepare for. They're not thinking about us. So stop pretending like we're as important in their lives as they are in ours, because that's not the case. So why does being consistent and persistent, why is that so important? Because life changes fast, situations change fast, plans change on a dime. Timing opportunities, those windows open and close, and it's very unpredictable, right? You could have someone that has absolutely no intent to doing something. Something happens, and for a 2 week period, if you were to contact them or meet with them, you'd have a listing. 2 weeks later, it's too late. Someone already signed it. Um, Buyers and sellers don't remember. They aren't thinking about us in between calls. We're thinking about them in between calls because that's our job, right? But they're not thinking about us. We're not, I promise you, we're not even on their radar. Um, and you're not bothering people, right? That's your hallucination. That's the dialogue in your head. They're not even thinking about it. So how could we even be bothering them? Right. And when we're calling them, we're not calling them to pester them or to check in, right? No one wants to be checked in on. We're calling them to offer help. We're calling them to provide them with value. We're providing them to give them something that they wouldn't have had if we hadn't talked to them.
And Chris, Raj's question is that a combination of emails, texts, and phone calls,
Mm.
which I want you to address, but it also
Yeah.
something that when you are sending a text or if you are sending an email or leaving a voicemail, don't try to accomplish your whole thing in that message. Your goal in that message is to spark interest, a little bit of intrigue, something exciting. I think of a
Yep.
text a statement question. Hey, Chris, I know you were looking for an investment property on the lake. I found something cool. So that's my statement. Question would be, when do you have time today to speak to me for 5 minutes so I can give you the details? So always think a little bit of sexy urgency, not, hey, I'm the agent you met at open house. Really like the opportunity to work with you. I could set you up on a search, but I really like to talk to you more. They're just going to go delete, right? So it's got to be a little sexy.
Yeah. Um, and so back to the question, it's a combination of all the above, right? I'll talk to someone and I'll say, hey, did you get a hold of them? No, they didn't respond. How did you try? I sent them an email. Okay. Did you call them? Well, no. Hey, did you text them? No. So we want to be texting, calling, emailing, all the above. When I send a text, my main goal is just to get an engagement, get a response. So my text might be, hey Debbie, this is Chris Heller, the agent you met last week, or I'm calling you because you filled out a form about a property at 123 Anywhere Street. I left you a voicemail. Did you get it? I sent you an email. Did you get it? Right? Every text I'm going to send is going to end in a question because I want them to respond to that question. Because if they respond, then there's started a connection starting to be made. A relationship without them even knowing it is starting to be created. Um, I often will send a text saying, "Hey, this is Chris Heller. I'm the agent that has the information about the property you requested. I'm going to call you now." Right? So that when a phone number shows up on their phone that they don't recognize, they just don't send it to voicemail or ignore it. Or I'm going to do it in reverse. Hey, this is Chris Heller. I just called you and left you a message. Let me know that you got it. It's about a property you inquired about. So we want to make sure we're connecting those. These are some phrases that you can use to move conversations forward. So when you're actually talking to someone, these phrases, um, create context. They create, a forward motion in the conversation. Now, I've already alluded to a lot of these things that stop agents from following up, and most of it are the thoughts that we have, which is another way of just saying self-sabotage. The fear of being annoying, the lack of structure, right? They're not using their Brivity CRM to reset reminders and set follow-ups and to use the day in the life features and those things. Um, Not knowing what to say, right? That's what we're talking about, right? It's not this isn't brain surgery, right? It's mostly common sense. Giving up too early, the biggest mistake that agents make. Not tracking what the next steps are, right? Not making good notes and good follow-up. So when you follow up, say, hey, Debbie, last time we spoke, we talked about this. I want to see, is that still the plan, or has anything changed between last time we spoke and today? Well, Chris, yeah, actually, things have changed. Or, no, that's still the plan. Great. Well, based on that, and then I'm going to continue the conversation. Taking things personally. One of the phrases that makes my skin crawls when I hear agents say they ghosted me. They didn't ghost you. They they would have to be thinking about you to ghost you. They're not thinking about you. Just because they didn't respond doesn't mean anything. I get calls and text messages all the time. And if I'm ready to engage with that person, I'll respond. And if I'm not, I usually don't because I'm busy and I have other things I'm doing. Or I may respond 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later. I do that all the time. I responded last night to an email that I got 4 weeks ago. That was a follow-up email from someone trying to sell something. And because I was ready last night, I wasn't ready at any of the time in the last 4 weeks. So don't take things personally. In fact, don't be in sales if you're going to take things personally. Right? That makes your life really hard. Um, Let me keep going. Being persistent and consistent. People who win at follow-up are the ones that win in real estate. And the people that win in the follow-up are the ones that are persistent, right? They keep going when most people would give up. They keep moving beyond the no's. In fact, they understand that every no is just getting them one step closer to a yes. They're consistent in their activities. They don't do it now and then or occasionally. They do it every day. It's part of their routine. It's part of their schedule. And they understand that providing value is the thing that's going to get them the appointment, right? Because a lot of agents could be following up. A lot of agents could be interacting with that consumer. A lot of agents could be connected to that consumer. But the one that provides the value is the one that's going to get the appointment. All right, so here's some action steps. You've taken some notes. You've agreed with some of the things we've talked about. You probably have disagreed with some of the things we've talked about. But here's some actual things that you can do. Identify 5 people in your database or in your phone who you need to follow up with. And you know who they are. You don't have to think hard. Who are the people that you know you need to follow up with that you haven't? Then if it's a lead that you haven't connected with, apply the 3-3-3 cadence. 3 times a day for the first 3 days, then 3 times a week for the next 3 weeks, and then 3 times a month for the next 3 months. If it's someone that you have talked to, then it's going to be not 3 times a day for the next 3 days, right? Because you already talked to them, and that would be weird. That'd be like stalking. Um, so it might be, I'm going to call them 3 times. I'm going to try them 3 different times this week. Right? I'm going to through text, calls, or emails. When you're talking to them, use the FOMO script about something that happened, something that changed in the market, something in regards to the property they inquired about or the neighborhood they were looking at. Ask every lead about timing to provide clarity. Clarity for you so that you can know what the next best steps are. And in doing so, when you're asking them the questions and they're answering, oftentimes it provides they get clear. They get clarity on what their plans really are, right? They get below the surface level responses. And then track everything. So your systems are just automatic, right? Leveraging Brevity, leveraging whatever system you use, so that becomes automatic. All right, that's it. Follow-up is not a terribly complicated thing. We make it complicated, but I think what's more important is that we talk about questions you have on anything we've talked about. Debbie and I, you and I have a dialogue about the other things we know that gets in the way of agents or what the great agents are doing that causes them to be effective that a lot of agents don't.
And there was a question about a voicemail script. What would be a typical voicemail script? And then Tareen is asking, where do we find the fear of missing out scripts? And my thought around that question is that it's a little bit dependent on that person and their situation and the opportunity that they're interested in, right? So,
Yeah, so here's There's no magic script, and it absolutely depends on situation. So if someone says, "Well, Chris, what's the best voice message script?" I'd have to know like some context. What type of, what type of prospect is it? Was it someone I met at an open house? Was it an expired listing that I'm trying to get an appointment with? Is it a FISBO? Like, because my message is going to vary depending on the situation and who the person is. But and if someone wants to give me a specific situation, I'll give you a specific script. In the absence of that, what I want you to use is just common sense. Think about yourself. What would cause you to respond? What would you want to hear? What would you, um, what would be annoying or repelling to you, or what would be helpful to you, right? And think of it that. So I can't. I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see the chat in case anyone.
That it's
Um,
being a market.
okay. All right. So Debbie, give me a specific situation. I'll give you a voice message script for that situation.
We've got one. I'm going to wait until my kids get out of school, and then we've got a summer vacation. So probably sometime late summer.
Okay. So and let's pretend it's March 5th because it is. Um, so and let's say you told me that, a couple weeks ago. So now I'm following up. So my voice message might be something as simple as, "Hey Debbie, it's Chris Heller, your favorite real estate agent, or the agent you met, or the agent you got referred to, or the agent that called you. Um, and I know you'd said that you were going to be looking to do something at the end of summer because of schools and some vacations you had. My question that's been bouncing around my head since we talked is, if the perfect property came up at a price that we thought was just too good to be true, would you want me to call you about that? Would you want to know about it? Or would that just make things worse for you? Let me know. You can either call me back or text me, whichever is easier for you. Right? And that's it's simple. It's a question. Now, she may respond, she may not respond. I'm going to, like, the next day send her a text message, say, "Hey Debbie, Chris Heller, I left you a voice message yesterday. Did you get it?" And I don't care what the answer is. I don't care if she gives me a thumbs up, thumbs down. I saw it, but I haven't listened to it, or I got it, thank you, or thanks, or no, or whatever it is. As long as she's engaging with me, I'm feeling good about that.
So I think you mentioned Area Pro. Some of you may want to Google that, look it up, do a demo. Pretty affordable product. Of course, if you're part of Place Inc., you already have that as part of your platform. But Area Pro is so cool because you can take their area, take an address, take an area where they're shopping in a minute or two. It will give you a full report on that market, and you can actually ask Area Pro, please write me a script for a seller who says they want to wait until summer and I think they should do it sooner. Or please write me a script for a buyer who's waiting to time the market. Or write me an email using this data. Like, it's so cool, guys. And tech really is leverage and it's really affordable. And then Raja's asking, are you using any systems to automate follow-ups? Well, you know, Chris Heller and I, the CRM we operate in is Brivity, Brivity, because it has some great things like market reports and cool notifications to you and follow-up plans built in. Our thought is whatever CRM you have, just use it, right? Because many of you already have tools, or at your brokerage and brand, you have access to them, and you just maybe have not taken the time to master the use of them.
Yeah, and I'm going to say one other thing about Brivity. In let's say I've had a team for 36 or 37 years. I can count on one hand how many CRMs we've used in that time. So I don't switch a lot. But my team switched to Brivity and they are loving it. And it's probably the most intuitive, easy to use, and practical system out there. Um, I also get asked a lot, like, where do you get the names and numbers of who you're calling? So if you're doing lead generation and you're trying to have more people to follow up with, we use land voice. Expired, for sale by owner, distressed property owners, gives you all the information, the, contact information, super easy. All right, what other questions? Yes, land voice is scrubbed for the DNC lists. And you're an agent that does better face to face. I've experienced how hard it is to get cold leads to that stage. What's a good script for that, given that you haven't talked to them ever, you don't know them or nothing? Okay, super good question. Who asked that? Ramza asked that. So that's always the goal. And by the way, we all do better face to face, right? Human connection, human interactions, being able to see body language, to being able to see uh, expressions, facial expressions, being able to look someone in the eye, give them a firm handshake and a big smile to instill confidence. That's all easier being done face to face than it is over a phone. So the goal is getting face to face. If someone wants my time and they want to meet with me, they got to give me a good reason, right? If I call the physical therapist and say, "Hey, here's what's going on. What should I be doing? Everything else." Um, he could answer that question, or he could say, "Hey, you need to come in." Now, if he doesn't tell me why I need to come in, I may just call someone else, right? Because I'm not looking to do that. I just want some answers. So, if he says, "Hey, Chris, I can answer your question and give you some exercise and everything else. But what I need to do to really be able to help you and make sure that I'm giving you the right exercises to do and prescribing the right things." Am I still on? Okay, Debbie disappeared and I thought the whole thing ended. Um, uh, that I so picking up that story, so that I give you the right information, the right extras, I really need to do some tests on your knee and to ask you a bunch of questions. So they'll probably take 15 or 20 minutes. I'm happy to do it at your convenience. I'm here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays from 7 in the morning till 5 at night. What would work best for you, right? So he gave me a reason why I should come in. If we want to get face to face with someone, we got to give them a compelling reason. So if it's a buyer, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, here's what I found has been most helpful for most people is like there's a lot of agents that can show you properties. I could put you on a search and you're probably already on searches from 3 different sites and getting lots of properties, but that rarely gets anyone in a home. What usually works best is sitting down for 15 or 20 minutes and really understanding what you like, what you don't like, how we can save you time, how we can actually help you find homes before other people know about them, homes that aren't on the market yet. What are some of the unique things that we do that give our buyers an unfair advantage? If I could show you how we could give you an advantage in this process, would it be worth 15 minutes of your time for us to meet? Either at my office, Starbucks, your home. Now, the key is when we ask those questions, and this is the key for all questions, that when we ask it and we shut up. All too many times I hear agents ask a question and then they'll start to answer it themselves, or they'll ask a compound question on top of it, and then the first question gets lost. When we ask questions, zip it. Be comfortable with the awkwardness, with the quiet. They'll answer eventually. All right. I always do a buyer's consult in the office or Zoom meeting. Most buyers are fine with this. Absolutely, Jan. I used to do a big chunk of my listing presentations in the office, get people to come in. When they come in your office, you got them, whether it's a buyer cons or listing presentation. So that's always the first goal is get them in your office for a meeting. Second best is a neutral site. And then third best is their home or at a property you're showing.
Chris, I read in a book the other day that the thing home court advantage that we all know about when it comes to sports, very
Yep.
relevant in business. In fact, it increases your opportunity by 40%. So if you think of maybe arranging a tour, they leave a key, they let you in when the housekeeper's there, you do a 15-minute walkthrough. And then you say, let's meet at our office where I have all my tools. You can see where I work. It will be a more professional meeting. You get them into your office, you're golden. You said something earlier, and I know we're almost out of time, so I think it's good to reinforce this. Guys, scripts are terrific. They're good. We all love them. And yet sometimes they're a little bit too much of a crutch. In other words, you're overthinking. Do I have the perfect words? What do I say? If you think about it this way, if this were my brother, if this were my friend, if this were my uncle, and they had inquired on a property, or they mentioned they were waiting until August, what would be the normal questions that you would ask them, right? Just normal questions because you care about them, you want to help them have the best outcome. So you would need to understand. If you ever feel like you're asking a series of questions that could sound like an interrogation, Chris, years ago, you and I learned question softeners. I'm curious. May I ask? I was wondering. Please tell me. Now, you don't put that in front of every question. You don't use the same one over and over, but you sprinkle those into the conversation. So, and just, relax, guys, right? What is the worst thing that could happen? They hang up on you. So what? Call them back in a month. They won't even remember that you called. So again, just kind of get out of your head, get into that service mindset. And I think that that's why new agents, Chris, sometimes have what we call beginner's luck because they're so enthusiastic. Yeah, they're scared. Skills may be a little not quite there, but they're so excited about what they do and they infuse that into their prospects, right? So, Chris, last thought, anything else?
Yeah, there's a couple other questions I want to get to really quick too. Um, Raj asked any good scripts or best practice for listing expireds. Um, there's scripts, right? There's not one's better than another. Debbie, I think, has a whole book of scripts that you guys can I'm sure she'd be happy to share. Here's what I want to say about that. Just understanding the mentality of a seller who's an expired listing and what they're going through. The main thing you want to do is not get off the phone with them, right? Their only goal is to get you off the phone. And they're going to use and say the things that worked with the last agent that called them 10 minutes earlier to get them off the phone, right? They're going to say stuff like, well, where were you when it was listed? Or bring a buyer if you have one, or whatever. All they're saying, they're just screaming, I wish my house would sell and I'm frustrated that it didn't. That's all they're saying. All right. So we want to be empathetic to that. We want to be conscious of that and say, Mr. Seller, I hear you. And what I hear you saying is you're frustrated as heck that your home didn't sell and now you got all these agents calling you. And where were they when your home was for sale, right? Well, yeah, that's exactly it. I get it. So here, can I just have 5 minutes to maybe prevent you from having this frustration again. Yeah. Well, yeah, what do you have to say? Right. And then I'm just going to talk about, you know, what stopped their home from selling, how they happen to choose that agent. If there was a completely different approach that could get them a different outcome, would it be worth 15 minutes of their time? Right. Or do they still want to get to where they were going? Right. Or did their plans change? Right. I need to know that. So we can give you the scripts, but having the scripts isn't the biggest issue. The biggest issue is staying in the conversation, right? And not getting defensive, not getting reactive, not getting taking it personal. Um, there was something else I saw. Oh, someone said, "Hey, many times I get them to commit to an appointment, but they cancel last minute." All right, sometimes things come up and people have to cancel appointments. But sometimes we haven't given them a compelling reason to have the appointment, right? We haven't shared with them information. We haven't prepared them for the benefits they're going to get at the appointment. We haven't shared with them the work we're going to be doing. So, Debbie, I'm super excited. We're going to be meeting next Friday. Between now and then, let me tell you what's going to be happening. Me and my team are going to be doing a bunch of the research and preparing a bunch of the marketing so we can show you examples of the proactive and aggressive approach we're going to take to market your home. So when we meet, I'll be able to show you specific examples of that. Would that be helpful? Well, yeah, Chris, it would be great. The other thing I'm going to be doing is really taking a look at every home that was for sale when your home was for sale, seeing what sold and what didn't sold, and really getting clear on why your home is still here and why you're not living where you want to live. And I'll be able to share that with you when we meet. Right. So I'm giving her compelling reasons of things that will happen when we meet.
No,
Um,
and I think a couple other things I'd add to that is whenever possible, set your appointments for as quickly as possible. The further out you book, the higher your cancellation or no-show rate potentially will be. And when you confirm your appointments, you know how you get that, you'll get a message from your dentist that says, are you still going to be able to make your appointment? You're like, oh, do I want, instead of, I'm looking forward to seeing you at 2 o'clock tomorrow. I have some incredible things ready for you. Once again, here's my address. See you tomorrow. Right. So confirming in the positive and in the assumptive.
Yeah,
Um,
and then calling and confirm the appointment. I'm sorry I had to move
yep.
my computer was about to die. I had to get over here where I could plug it in.
We've got to both jump on next Zoom. So I really appreciate everyone, joining us today because as Chris started off saying, a good majority of the business that you need for the year, it is probably already somewhere in your phone, in your computer, laying on your desk. And just tell yourself when you get that little creepy little voice like, I don't know if I should call them again, put that voice away, just call them because you do provide an incredible service. You help change lives. You help people build wealth by investing in real estate. But if you don't talk to them, you can't help them. And they might end up with someone not as powerful as you are. So we really appreciate you guys. If you have an interest in joining coaching or talking to me about that, Van just popped up the link. You will get the recording tomorrow. And I'm also going to attach the scripts that we have here at Forward in case you find something helpful. And Chris, thank you so much for spending time with us. Because I know you so well, I can say without a doubt, you walk the walk, and everything you talked about today, your teams, you've always been, I think, really demonstrated the highest standard of follow-up and customer care. So thank you for sharing your tips.
Thank you, Debbie. And hey, we'll if you guys like these, we'll keep doing them. Just let us know topics, and we'll happy to address those.
Yeah, please. And in fact, I'm going to put my email in right now. So forward, actually, I'm going to give you the private ones. Let me put that in there, guys. Debbie at forwardcoaching.com and just say, yes, I would like to hear you and Chris talk about X. All right. So give us a topic. We will address it. Thanks again, Chris.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here.
Bye-bye.